The stars you were chasing shine right deep inside you. When will you ever let it shine from within and cast all...
Hello and welcome back to Kingdom Reviews. I'm your host, Future Keybearer. Today, I give my final thoughts on Kingdom Hearts Coded.
Story. The most hated element of the game.
And to an extent, I could kind of see why.
Once again, it is just retreading the same ground that's already been retreaded before, and it has very little to do with the overall plot of the series.
Or at least, it did when it first came out. It may or may not have some relevance in future games.
However, even if there's zero overall plot relevance, I think it is a fun little side adventure to go on. Yeah, the idea of going into a digitized version of Jiminy's journal is a little weird, but, as I've pointed out multiple times now, is not unprecedented for this franchise.
Not the strongest or really the most interesting story of the series, but fun.
Gameplay. Woo boy, now we're getting to the good stuff. I don't know why people don't talk about the actual gameplay more. It's great. It sees the return of the well-received command deck system from Birth by Sleep and improves upon that game's command gauge with the new clock gauge.
Or at least, I thought it was easier to utilize.
Not to mention, this is the first game in the series to make all the Keyblades equally viable. In every other game thus far, it's almost always a good idea to equip your newest weapon, as it'll usually have better stats than what you currently have. Here, the new Keyblades don't necessarily make you stronger, just give you a slew of different abilities, and even new fighting styles to play with. Yeah, 358 had alternate styles too, but it was still a better idea to use the new equipment when you get it. Speaking of 358, the stat matrix here is a much better alternative to that game's panel board, which was just too limiting.
And all of that is before talking about the varying gameplay styles.
From side-scrolling, to run and gun, to turn-based combat, there are always great ways to break up the game and keep things interesting. My only downside is that I kinda wish we got just one more for Agrabah before cycling back to basic combat.
This may be controversial, but I think this game has not the best, but one of the best gameplay systems in the entire series.
Presentation.
Sorry to bring up so many comparisons to 358, but seeing as how it was the other less than well-liked DS game in the series, I felt it had to happen.
Anyway, comparing the graphics of this game to 358, it's both better and worse, if that makes sense. I feel like 358 had smoother movement of the character models, possibly due to more frames, whereas the models here are a bit more rigid. However, the movement in 358 was kinda slow and cumbersome, where in Coded it's much more snappy and responsive.
Basically, 358 feels like they were trying to compress a PS2 game onto the DS, which did make it look better, but I feel like Recoded was being built from the ground up for the DS, which made it feel better. Take from that what you will.
Sound design. Not much to say on the voice acting, seeing as how this game had very little of it, but what we got worked well enough. The compression on the music was really good, though the little grunts that happen in these cutscenes just sound awful at times. Summary. Overall, while I understand why this isn't one of the more popular titles in the series, I don't get why it's so hated. Sure, the story is pretty inconsequential and it serves as no more than a weak vehicle for the gameplay, but the gameplay is a lot of fun and deserves to be checked out.
Well, that's it for this episode. Tune in next time as we take a look at some trivia.